Hello and welcome to another episode of our Discover Love Academy. I am so honored and privileged as the founder and creator of this amazing group of experts and coaches. I am Jacqueline Nichols, and I am a professional matchmaker that has brought together the ultimate experts. And this is your chance to hear from a fabulous couple that works together. So they are our love coaches, the duo that brings it together. So you're going to be able to hear amazing insight that is for you to really listen, learn, and be open to the process so we can find your mystery person, whether you're looking for a lady or a gentleman. So I am very excited to introduce you to Antia and to Brody. This is going to be an amazing opportunity. So you two dive in. Who wants to introduce first? And let me know why you want to be a part of our incredible Discover Love Academy.
Go first.
So, do you want to go first?
You can. Ladies first.
All right. So we're really excited to be here. We've been helping so far we have helped over 1,000 single women worldwide to find the right partner for them without wasting any more time, no matter if they're in their 20s or if they're in their 60s. You know, we always say it's not about the age, it's about the stage.
Yes, as well as single men as well. I work with the men primarily. Antia works with the women primarily. Mm-hmm. And we've been doing it for over 20 years combined. We've spoken at Harvard recently about this same subject. Some of the things we're going to talk about today. Antia's spoken at Google about it, and hundreds of radio shows and stations all over the U.S., stages all over the U.S. And it really is our passion because as you hear from, maybe we'll tell a little bit of our story before how we met each other. We both struggled with this for so long before we finally committed to figuring it out, hired our own dating coaches and read hundreds of books and worked with our coaches to really attract each other and break through our blocks of low confidence and trust issues and fears and anxieties to really make it happen and have a loving relationship that we both really wanted.
I absolutely love that. I mean, just the two of you together radiates love, and you have an energy. It's so awesome. And that's actually been really fascinating because we've had so many of our coaches and experts are in amazing relationships and really living their example and enjoying sharing that. And that's awesome that you guys have stretched the borders, that you have worldwide clientele, because love knows no limits. And knowing that you also walked your talk and that you guys have done the work and you understand what it actually takes. It's not just a bunch of, I went to some classes and I did this. You actually live it, walk it, and do this with your clients. So tell us a little bit about the story that inspired you two to come together, because when you're looking for love, it's always nice to hear how others have done it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, as you can detect from my accent, I grew up in Eastern Germany and to an emotionally absent household. And so my mom couldn't really show love. She didn't learn what love really meant. So I never got a hug, or I was never told I love you. And I remember I was 18 months old and I was trying to crawl into my mom's bed. And instead she rolled over with her back to me and said, "Stör mich nicht," which means don't bother me. And as you can imagine, 18 months old, I made a decision it's not safe to express my emotions, right? Like they're not welcome. Right. And I developed a coping mechanism that we all do when we're little. And I made sure that I don't need anyone. So I became Miss Independent. I went grocery shopping by the time I was 8 years old by myself.
Wow.
And just really priding myself in that, right? I didn't even think that there may be something wrong with that picture, right? But instead, I was thinking all my other classmates are just spoiled. They don't know real life, right? And now fast forward, because we're living in a mirroring universe, you attract who you're being. So I attracted men who were just as emotionally conflicted inside of themselves that I was, because I still had that part inside of me that wanted to be hugged and loved.
Right.
But I didn't want to show that, right? Because I knew it wasn't safe. So I attracted the emotionally unavailable men, the avoidant men who made me all those promises one day only to drop them, and drop me at the head of a moment. And so that went on for a few years. until I said, like, I can't go on like this and go in circles and feel abandoned and rejected. So I got myself on a plane, got myself into UC Berkeley to study personality psychology and really understand on a deeper level, on an academic level, because that's the most reliable one, at least so we think,
right.
How did a dysfunctional relationship and dynamic I had with my mother directly translated into the dysfunctional relationships I had with men? Didn't necessarily make sense to me at the time.
Right. Absolutely.
And right. So I started to study attachment style theories, masculine, feminine dynamics. So I started to throw myself in workshops, seminars, conferences. You name it, I did. That's what I always tell my clients,
You dove right in and you committed to the process. That's the big thing.
Yeah, totally. I really did. Now, interestingly enough, what happened was I became the expert and I started to build like little support groups because all the women were always asking me for advice. And so I'm like, well, I don't have the one yet, but we can do so I did support groups and they were very successful. I was a maid of honor twice in a wedding that came out of this.
That's right? Great. Yes.
So all the women found the right partner for them, but it wasn't happening for me, like I said before, right? And so that was kind of like my dirty little secret, because here I am, I had figured out, like the formula, the system, right? The step-by-step secrets and how to get married and how to have that long-term relationship that you always wanted. And I was really thinking there was something wrong with me, right? Because if the system works, it must be inherently about me. So that's when I hit really my lowest point.
Right.
Stop hiring a one-on-one mentor for myself.
Good.
It helped me to see my blind spots. You don't know.
Right. If you don't know what you don't know, that's right? The whole thing. Yeah. People think, oh, I'm good. I get it all the time. Oh, I don't need knowledge. I don't need education. I just need to date the right people. It's like, actually, you probably have met the right person many times. You just have no clue what to do.
That's what I say too, and and that was, for me, it was the same thing. I was like, I just have to go to more places and whatever. So I learned that, I wasn't being as vulnerable. I still had like one foot out, even though I pretended I had both feet in.
Yeah. And people do that all the time. They're always like describing their exit strategy, yet they don't really realize that they're actually preparing for failure in that. So you are so awesome to share that information. I'm thinking as our listeners are going through in their mind here in this story going, ooh, I think I've been there. I think I've done that. Okay, this is amazing. I can relate.
Yeah. So that really helped me to be really vulnerable and be all in, and also trust myself enough to set boundaries and say no without the aftertaste of guilt.
That's a big one. That is so hard. And women, we're not really taught how to do that. And we don't realize that actually sets us up for failure in a relationship when that's not what the plan is.
Exactly.
So very, very powerful that you learned how to say no and I like how you describe that, it's kind of that bitter aftertaste of like setting your boundaries, but yet not really knowing how to be good with that. So you learned how to be good with the decisions you were making.
Yeah. And that really helped me to become congruent then, right? Because when I said no to the wrong man or to the wrong situations, I became congruent. And that's why just a couple months later, I met Brody, who was also very congruent, right? And how that translated was, he told me the first night, literally in hours, that I'm the girl of the story. And we don't necessarily recommend that to singles. Go on out there and tell hello. No, we don't necessarily recommend that. Okay, but Brody just felt this clear. But he's gonna add on to that, of course. But that's what happens, right? When you become congruent,
right?
Like that.
But we hear the story a lot when somebody meets their person. I often hear them later say, well, I did this, but I shouldn't have. But you know what? It's probably because they were the right person and you knew it was time just to kind of, whoa, I got to tell you this because I'm finding that you're incongruent, you're in vibration, you're a reflection of what I'm looking for. Oh my gosh, I found you. So what do we do? And that's so powerful. I'm so moved by what you're sharing. I know our audience is like getting goosebumps as they're listening, like, hold on, what does this mean to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so I'll share my half of the story with that. So actually, it's really like a miracle kind of that we met each other, because I feel like we had such similar journeys through our lives that allowed us to actually really find each other, which was probably why we connected also so quickly when we met each other. But because I had a very similar journey growing up, I grew up in a household where I felt actually controlled in my household by my mother, mostly growing up. I felt like she was always telling me what I could do and what I couldn't do, and really keeping me in this really closed box that was safe, but I wasn't happy and I wasn't free. I wasn't be able to really express myself and be who I want to be. And I felt like she'd also taken away the power from my dad as well. So I didn't really have a strong masculine role model growing up. That also, I think, presents a lot of challenges for me growing up and when I started getting into dating. So fast forward a bit, and I got into college and I started doing a little bit of work on myself and because part of it when I was growing up, I kind of became emotionally avoidant because of that. I didn't want to be controlled by anyone ever again, or a woman ever again, really. So I kind of started to recognize this about myself. I did a little bit of work on myself, started opening up a little bit, and I got into my first serious relationship in college.
Okay.
And me and her were together for about 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. In that relationship, and we had our ups and downs, and it was an okay relationship. But after 2.5 years of being together, she decided to leave me, and she dumped me because I wasn't able to really be the man that she needed. I wasn't able to really open up and give her the love that she really wanted and the commitment that she really wanted on the deeper levels. And so, she left me, and surprisingly, when she left me, I was very devastated by that. I felt like I screwed up. I wasn't being the best man I could be. I didn't really understand women and what they wanted or relationships. Mm-hmm. And I was my confidence was shot and gone, and I didn't have great social skills or a social life to turn to. And I ended up entering the deepest depression of my life. And
wow,
I was severely depressed for about 1.5 years, feeling alone and rejected. And I remember about 1.5 years into my depression, at the depths of my depression, I remember sitting in my car one day and just feeling like this gaping black hole in my chest, just like bleeding out, and like, oh my God, like my life isn't working. Mm-hmm. I don't have what I want. I don't have the love that I want. Like, what's the point? And I started actually having suicidal thoughts in that moment. Like, why keep living? What's the point of all this? It's just pain. And fortunately, what happened though, in that moment, when my mind started to go there's a stronger part of me that woke up. I call it the king inside. I see it now as the king inside of me. He woke up and he said, hey, wait, you could go down that path and you could just end it. Or what if instead, as a fun experiment, you did whatever it took to never, ever, ever have to feel this way ever, and you really committed to master this area of your life? And I said, okay, you know what? I think that sounds better. I'm just going to do that, and we'll see what happens. And so I put my stake in the ground. I said yes, and I started this journey of studying everything I can get my hands on in relation to dating and relationships and building great social skills, being the best man I can be. Confidence. I ended up going to switching my degree from biology to communications, interpersonal relationships, because I became so passionate about it. I had to master this. I ended up going to all these different workshops and seminars, just like Antia, spending tens of thousands of dollars trying to learn, going through the pickup artist community and the self-help community and communications and relationships and psychology. And I learned a lot. I filled up my head like a sponge. I learned a ton of information. And the frustrating thing for me too was, even though I learned all this stuff, I still wasn't able to connect with the kind of quality women that I really wanted to be with. And that's when I finally said, okay, you know what? I'm going to find a man who's already mastered this, and I'm going to hire him as my dating coach and have him really show me what exactly I'm not getting here. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for me specifically.
You owned it.
What?
You owned it. Like, I need to go where I want to be, and I've got to own this decision that no matter how many classes you take, sometimes there's a code that just needs to get broken with that.
Exactly. That specific code for me that unlocks the combo and on the lock. And so that's what I got with my coach. He took me under his wing, and he really showed me how my thinking pattern was off, the way I was approaching it was off, the way I was sabotaging myself. Mm-hmm. And my old beliefs and all these different things, and how I wasn't stepping into like my mature masculinity enough. I wasn't being the strong, confident man who really believed in myself that I could be. And so he really helped me get on track with that and helped keep me accountable to taking the right actions and started meeting quality women. And that's when I started finally having great connections and with women. I went through a phase. I dated lots of amazing women, kind of getting a feel for what I really wanted. And that's what led me eventually to the lovely Antia.
You can see the
Still
hand
working
movement.
with, yeah.
It works.
I popped out of the cake.
Yes.
Exactly. You're like, ta-da!
Yes. Yes, she's like the flower that pops out in radiant colors. And
Exactly.
yeah, we actually met each other in Hawaii. We were both living there at the time. It's partly why we have this background here.
Yes, I love it.
We met in Waikiki and at a workshop, which is part of the reason why we'd like to do workshops for our clients as well as coaching, because that's how we connected. And when we met, it was just like this full alignment on connecting on all levels. And they just, that's how it was like, okay, this is the woman that I'd written down in my story. And then we ended up kissing under the Hawaiian moon that night after hanging out for a couple hours, and then it was the rest was history.
Exactly. And you know, I love how you both have described your story. As our group is listening, I even have members of my agency that are popping in my head where I feel like so many times women don't realize how deeply men want to be loved and are searching for the answers and desiring that. And I have to say, in my almost 8 years as a matchmaker, that was my biggest lesson I learned very quickly. And the men that joined my agency with this attitude of, I'm going to give it all I've got for a solid year and see where I end up, are the ones that have walked down the aisle and have committed relationships because they were all in. And, you know, like we as women, we tend to do half in, half out, and men tend to be all in or all out. And what's powerful is that you both have shown that example. You both got to the same place, but it took the work, it took the commitment, and the vulnerability on both sides. So what's so powerful is just that you walked your truth. So no surprise why your title is, hey, how do you attract the right person without wasting your time? And really loving getting it going. Because I'm sure there's times you're like, why did this take so long? But it took you guys both being at the same place. And I love that you guys met at a workshop, because I have matched so many couples where it's organic, but a creative environment. And it's often at workshops. It's often at socials and mingles, because there's a little like naturalness that comes with that, but knowing that these are people coming with a similar purpose in mind. So that is really, really powerful. And I applaud you guys for continuing the work even once you found one another, because so many times people are only in this to find their person and then they don't keep sharing. So thank you.
The work really starts, I think, once you meet your partner. I know the next level of it. So yeah, it's a never-ending journey. And that's the beauty that we found about dating and romantic relationships, is it is a master's journey, and there's always higher levels. There's always higher. It's a lifelong learning journey. And we continue to break through new levels of intimacy and supporting each other and helping each other to grow. That it's amazing when you really, like you said, commit fully to that path of like, I'm going to master this. I'm going to get this area of my life handled, and not only handled, but better than anybody else that I know, really get it handled.
Exactly. Well, you think about how much energy that you guys put in to growing as individuals, learning and developing, building your own craft and skills as experts. Now you can put that energy into your loving relationships. So when you're dating all these people, suddenly all these distractions are now focused on your one partner. And that's the part that I love for couples to be able to share with my amazing members, that it's the good kind of work when you're in the right relationship. It's not, you know, the tough work where you're constantly, it's like going to the gym and you're in pain and agony all the time, but in the end you get a great body. You know, it's like you're working for what really matters. You guys are communicating, you're learning the language of each other's journey. And so that's the part that I really admire, how you two bring your own stories to the table. I think people miss out on what it takes to get to the spot. They keep thinking, oh, look at that cute couple, they met on a park bench and they're just always happy. And it's really about all the work we did to get to the point to sit on that park bench to meet one another. So you guys have definitely set that example.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing we always really see is, you know, we go through what our clients need to learn the next, right? It's really, really interesting. Like we always know exactly what we need to teach, because we like teach learning, right? So it's both.
Right, exactly. So you guys have brought up and touched on some topics that I know our listeners are feeling similar to, from the loneliness, the anxiety, the depression, the wondering, when do you give up? When do you stop trying? I just was on the phone earlier with a lady like, do I give up? And I'm like, absolutely not. I have people have found matches at all ages in my agency, and I'm very proud of that. But what are some of the tips that you give to really hone in on what it takes to make that shift? Like you're saying, Brody, I'm sitting in the car, I got the dark side or I can go the positive side. And even though they're both big decisions, you really have to choose one and dive in. But what is it that you have as tools to pass on to our incredible members listening is, what are some of those questions to start asking themselves to know what we need to do differently?
Yeah, I think the first piece is really letting go of wanting to look good. So that was the biggest piece for me, was really like becoming transparent and honest with each other. I mean, Brody and I, we did a shadow ceremony the night before our wedding, and just really acknowledge each other's deepest, darkest fears.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Share, what does that mean for those that don't know?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Do you want to talk?
Sure, I can share that with the book. Yeah, because a lot of people do ask us about the shadow ceremony, but basically what it is before we got married, we did a ceremony, just the two of us, where we dressed all in black. We got this suggested to us actually by our officiant, and we shared with each other our deepest fears and judgments and insecurities going into the marriage. I share mine, she would share hers. So for example, mine, what I shared with her is I had a deep fear of losing my freedom and being controlled, because of course that was my childhood wound. So actually a lot of our childhood wounds are probably what is going to show up.
True.
You want to share yours?
Yeah, and mine was not being good enough, as you can of course imagine, right, from my childhood wound. So because no matter what happens, like it'll always be there. You know, the wound is always going to be there. It's just a matter of how do you cope with it. And we really found that exposure is the best way, rather than hiding it, suppressing it, right, and judging it.
Yeah, because then you can integrate it, then you can work with it. So actually, we use for example, incorporating my fear of losing my freedom. When we put the rings on each other, we said, with this ring, I set you free. So it's
that gives me goosebumps. I love vows. I officiate weddings, obviously, as a matchmaker. But that's so powerful, because that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's about your freedom in this loving relationship. How beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And that helps, especially for singles that we've met that have that fear of commitment. It's that question. That's a great question to ask, is what if you actually could become more free in a relationship? What if you could actually express yourself even more, having the support of your partner and the safety to be even more, going for your goals, career-wise or health-wise, or just with your purpose, all those things that you can pursue even more because you're with your partner. So that's a great way to look at it. And whatever your fear is for going into a relationship, ask yourself, well, what if this fear could actually, or what if this could actually be a benefit? Or what if this could actually be the opposite? So I guess I'd have to take the specific fear, but yeah, you take that fear and how can it be a benefit? How can it be the opposite? And start to think of ways that can be true. So you can start to crack some little cracks in that belief to be able to look at, well, is that really true? Is it really true that you're going to, get hurt again, or that you're going to not have, the lasting relationship that you want? It's like, what if it was true that actually you were more protected in that relationship than before? You were actually safer than being alone in that relationship. So that really helped. And we also shared our same fears. We shared it with everybody at our wedding. So before we did our regular vows, we did what we called our shadow vows, and we shared those same fears with everybody to hear that. So we're really being authentic to the next level. It's like we're sharing with everybody. So it's very transparent. And then we shared our regular vows. So that way we felt that it had the authenticity of both sides of the coin, the yin and the yang, going into the marriage, so that there was real depth and roots.
Right.
This floaty fairy tale that a lot of weddings are like. It's kind of repressing all the dirty stuff, and we don't want to look at the quote unquote dirty stuff, but actually bring it into the light and embrace all of it.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's really knowing that you guys walked into this journey to find love with a vulnerable side, and knowing that you continue that into your courtship, into your vows, is really what's going to build that foundation as our members are listening, thinking about finding the love that they want, choosing this desiring connection, and knowing that what you start with is what you continue. And that's so powerful. So listening to your guidance is really, really important, because marriage is a form of freedom when you allow it and you communicate from the get-go. And that's so powerful. And as many girls, unfortunately, do have that worry that they're not good enough, but already knowing your rawest point is so crucial, because then you can bring that up in a safe way. Those are safe, and everybody that watched your wedding knows that those can never be used against you, because you have laid them on the table so clearly. And that is walking in your truth and your authenticity. So you guys are resonating that so incredibly clearly. I love that. It means that you really, you started with your truth and you continued with your truth. And that's what I want for our listeners to go, oh my gosh, I can start with this communication from the get-go and keep it. That's the part that I think people lose when they're dating. They lose their voice. And so you guys are showing that. How are some other ways that people can keep their voice in those beginning stages when it's not flowing as beautifully as you guys flow in your courtship? Because obviously you've dated other people when you knew you needed to exit out and not waste any more time, or people you needed to kind of move it along to know if there was progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel it really depends on, if it's a woman who usually gives all of her power away, I always say, like, make sure that the power comes to you, actually lean back, feel your feet on the ground.
I like that.
Just really, I always tell them, like, visualize like the energy coming to you, and it will. But if you're focused and you're leaning in and you're like, oh yeah, what's going on and this and that, then she's like losing her power and she's beginning to lose her voice too, right? Because her energy gets so caught up in his energy,
right?
Loses herself, right? Especially the anxious.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would say.
I love that you brought that up. And I want to ask Brody, as a man, from the standpoint of a woman leaning back, because I notice so many women, they can get a little too busybody in kind of controlling what he's up to and doing passive aggressive comments, and how incredibly unattractive that is to a man. And so, Brody, what do you feel when you're sharing with women and men how to know how to lean back and ground, but also to give men that masculine energy that so many women say they're craving, for a man to step in and take the lead in the relationship so she can have a voice, but also know where they're going?
Yeah. So for both men and women, I feel there's a balance that happens. And we talk a lot about the different archetypes. For women, we have the doormat and the bitch, and in the middle is the queen. And then for men, we have the nice guy and the asshole, but in the middle is the king. Now,
I like that. Say that again. That was really good. I'm like, hold on, guys, write your notes down as they're listening. I want you guys to write this and own it.
Yeah, definitely. So again, for women, there's the two archetypes. There's the doormat and the bitch. And then in the middle is the queen. The doormat is like leaning forward, please come to me. The bitch is like, I don't want to, don't bother, I don't want any attention. But the queen's in the middle. She's got the best of both. And then the king for men is the nice guy and the asshole, which is the same opposites of the ones I mentioned for the women. And in the middle is the king. So the ideal for men and women, what that means, so we call it being the king for men or being the queen for women. What that means is where you're balanced. You're not overly independent. You're not overly pushing women away or pushing men away and doing those things like you mentioned, like the comments. We had a female client of ours the other day. She was telling me about how she goes on a date, and sometimes she'll tease men and she'll say little jokes, like if he drops his napkin, or if he spills his drink, she'll be like, oh, you're so stupid. And I'm like, well, you got to watch out, because those little comments, those are even if he doesn't seem offended by it or anything, or if he laughs it off, it's subtly like causing a rift in the relationship, because that's what happens from the woman's side. It's called emasculation, where she's basically putting herself in a superior position. I'm smart, you're stupid. And men can do the same thing too, and they can subtly do those teasing things, which that's actually coming from not in the moment, not that the whole woman is that, but that'd be like a bitch or an asshole kind of thing to do, because you're kind of subtly pushing them away or putting yourself in a position of superiority. So what I'm getting with that is, for being the king for men, I'll say that first for men, for being the king is really where you have an open heart, you're kind, you're interested, you're listening, just like a nice guy would. You're very kind, you're listening, you're chivalrous, potentially. You are chivalrous with women. And at the same time, you also respect yourself. You set boundaries, you value yourself, you respect yourself, and you are strong. You have that internal strength. And so when you're interacting with women, you're coming from that place of being balanced, open and kind, but also still respecting yourself and strong. And same with women. That would be the same balance when you're meeting with a man on a date, to be having the open, kind, caring heart, loving heart of the doormat, you could say, but also having the self-respect and the boundary setting and the self-valuing of the bitch. So you get the middle, so the queen is balanced in both. And that's how you can be interacting with a man, where you're not overly leaning forward and you're like, oh, I'm so glad to talk to you. And you're not also like, oh, yeah. I'm so
exactly.
like,
body language is powerful.
Even with
and
the body
energy.
language, it would be like balance. You'd be like just sitting straight. You know, that's actually better. Not leaning forward, not leaning back, but just kind of sitting straight. And that's like body language. That's how it would look like in the balance. And that comes across in body language as well as the verbal language too. Wow,
that is powerful. And that is so, so true. I'm just like feeling all the vibration from our members going, whoa, 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 hold on. And it's so, so true. And it's really, I love that you brought up the comment too about having a client that would say negative things, looking for a problem. I mean, it's that chipping away. People think they're being sarcastic, but they're actually demasculating the person. And really, it looks ugly, and it's a defense mechanism, but it's interesting, those that don't know any different, but it's usually a skill, as you guys have experienced from childhood, trauma that comes through. It's usually something that was probably taught from their own family, and they didn't realize that it comes with a knife. Not a good thing. So absolutely, I'm glad you brought that up. So in that regards, you guys talk about secrets that are kind of strange. What are some of the things that are a little quirky on finding people, like the same secrets to attract the person that you want? What are some of your guys' little tidbits that make it so that it's a little different on how you break through to find that relationship that's something you're looking for?
Yeah, totally. I mean, one thing I talked about at not Harvard, Google, we talked about at Harvard too, was it talked about shame, right? And so the reason why it's strange is because it's a little counterintuitive. When we feel shame, we kind of go against it. You know, we have like our shame shield, right? Brene Brown talks about that, versus like really leaning into it, right? So I actually shared it, Google, okay, this is my first corporate gig, right? So I felt like, okay, what is vulnerable for me? So not like the usual, okay, here's my vulnerability talk, right? But like, no, what makes me feel uncomfortable right now to say in front of the group? And so that was like really important, because we really talk about how much creative energy you get and what kind of like synchronicity in the field like develops. I can't even explain this. When you become visible, when you're authentic, when you talk into the uncomfortable, right? And because the room or the guy that you're on a date with can feel it anyways. So you might as well speak to it, because otherwise he's going to pick up on it, but it's going to be a mixed signal, right? Because it's like, I'm picking up on something. I don't know what it is. Something is like not fitting right.
Oh, I'm so glad you're bringing up mixed signals. Oh my gosh, that is such an important topic, because I get reviews after dates and I'll be like, did you guys go on the same date? They will describe a completely different date. It is so shocking. So touch more on this mixed signal energy, because that is really, whoa, the amount of translations I got to do blows my mind. So thank you.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it really comes from, so for me as an example, right? So I would have the anxious attachment style, but I wouldn't act as an anxious. So I thought like, oh, I'm sneaky. I'm making sure that like nobody can tell. And I would be like a little bit more laid back, but it was out of balance because it was in resistance. What you talk about, right? It's like, it's like out of balance. It's not authentic.
Right.
And the guy can pick up on that. So a lot of dates then lead to second date. And I don't understand why, right? But they could sense there's something not authentic about this, that she's not responding to text, and that I always have to text, but then her body language doesn't match that when we're on the date. And, you know, there's like little things, little cues that men pick up, right? And also to know about, you know, that we have like ambivalent intentions, right? So if you're an anxious avoidant, like I was, and how most of my clients are, like I said, you have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Right? So on the one hand, you go on a date and you're like, I hope this works out. And you see yourself and, you know, behind his first name, I mean, like his last name behind your first name, and you walk and see yourself down the aisle. But at the same time, you're already angry at him because he's going to reject you.
Right. It's so true. Right. People are already prepared for the failure and they haven't even met.
Yes. Right? So, and that's why they're anxious, because they're actually already expecting the rejection, because otherwise, if you know tomorrow's Christmas, I mean, yeah, you're excited, right? But you're not anxious because you're like, you know, Christmas is going to happen tomorrow, right? But if you don't know, if you're preparing, I don't know, if Christmas is not going to happen, you're going to get really anxious because you don't know, right?
That's really true. Like and I think that's where a lot of this anxious energy comes, because it is almost that pass fail on the first date. Did we give the right body language? Are we getting the right, response to what we're doing? Is this the right person? Should I say this? Should I not? And that is huge, when in the end, the goal is still the same for everybody that is genuinely looking for their connection, but it can be misread.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really important for a woman to be aware of. If she doesn't know, then she should then just ask yourself, what's so great about being single? Right? So if you don't know your counterintuition, like not your counterintention, sorry, that works against your goal, then ask yourself, like, what's so great about the situation that you're in right now? You being single, and you'll have your answer. What are the payoffs of being single? And once you're aware of them, right? So for Brody, it was like, I'm free, and you know what I mean? I'm not accountable to anyone. I can do anything. And for women, it's oftentimes also, when I have my man, that's what I'm feeling now. It's really that deep level of, you can lose them. Mm-hmm. You can lose them to disease, so many things can happen.
Absolutely.
And so that's then something that a woman has to be able to step into, that level of vulnerability and intimacy, because that is something we don't have control over. We can just live the best that we can live day by day. The next day is
exactly. And I like that you're reminding of that. I mean, it's so easy to get so concerned, where's this going to go? Well, enjoy it for where it is right now. And I think that that's a really important aspect. So you guys talk also about how to increase your communication and confidence and doing it quickly. What are some of the things that you guys do to really empower your wonderful clients to understand what can they do to build on that confidence? Because that's a big switch. If you've been rejected too much, you're insecure with it, and you're just kind of having a hard time putting yourself back out there. It's difficult, especially, and I'm hearing from the story you guys shared, you probably totally have the most magical answer for this, because you guys kept trying and weren't getting there. And it wasn't that your desire wasn't real, it was that you didn't have the tools. So what were some things that you wish you had known better when you were doing the dating, so that you wouldn't beat yourself up for the past and allow yourself to find that amazing love that you guys have now found and can treasure?
Yeah, well, what I would say is, just like, imagine if you were a salesperson who's selling, a house. You're a realtor who's selling a house or selling a car or selling something like that. If you're selling any product, you're going to have a really hard time selling that product if you don't believe in the product. If you're not totally sold yourself on that. So if you're not believing this is an amazing house, so many people are going to be so happy to live in this. Someone's going to be so happy to live in this house, or this car is amazing. Someone's going to be so happy to live. So if you're not thinking about those things about yourself, it's going to be really hard for someone else to think those things about you as well. So that's what I recommend to all my male clients and to our female clients as well, is to really start looking for all the reasons and actually listing them out. All the reasons that you are an amazing product, that you are an amazing person, that you have a lot of value to offer, all the little things you like about yourself, you love about yourself, that you compliment yourself on, that you acknowledge yourself for, even little things like, oh, I have nice hair, or I have pretty eyes, or, I graduated with great marks in high school, or I'm really creative, or I'm a good artist, or I have pretty hands, anything you can think of to put on that list. So you're just getting more and more reasons why you are freaking awesome products. You might say you're an awesome person, that any person would be lucky to be with you. They'd be happy to be with you. They would be, that it'd just be like a huge, massive privilege for them to actually be even in your presence. Right. So the other way you can do it is just write yourself a love letter. Imagine that you are writing yourself a love letter, how much you love yourself, what you love yourself for, and how enthralled you are. So you're continuing to build yourself up, remind yourself up, because once you start your brain on that path of looking for things that are great about you, your mind, your subconscious, even during the day, will start to find more reasons. Say, oh, look, I just completed that project really well at work. Or look, I just walked to my car really, really sexily.
So sexy walk helps. The sexy walk helps. I even teach that in my flirting classes.
Little turn.
And what I want to add to that, Jacqueline, and for everyone who's watching, is confidence really comes from knowing that you have capacity, right?
Ooh, I like that.
You have capacity to deal with whatever comes your way, meaning that what really capacity means is that you have the resources inside of yourself, right? And then this is especially true for the anxious attachment style, because they outsource all their resources to other people, and really learning how to source yourself, right? And seeing, I have a queen inside of me, right? I have different, more powerful parts inside of me that can nurture more fearful parts, like my inner girl, for example, that might freak out, right? So I don't have to run to the man and say, save me, I'm scared. But I can say, okay, I have this more adult self inside of myself. I have this mature self. And what that takes, of course, is nurture that part, right? Nurture that more intuitive part through meditation, prayer, screaming out loud, using your voice, whatever it is that feels you. One of my affirmations is I expand day by day, right? So however that looks like, right? However that looks like. And so I want you to imagine, like some of you are moms who are watching this, some of you will be moms, like when you have a baby, you have a tremendous amount of capacity to hold this. And especially the last month, you really want to get the baby out, right? So I see that with my girlfriends who are like 41 weeks, 42 weeks. And so it's like whoever can hold more capacity, right? Without freaking out, without having to release it. And that really goes even into the sexual realm too. So maybe when you're sexually, even like with yourself, like how fast do you release? How slow can you actually move this energy through your body? Or when you're at a workshop and you talk or you hear like a good speech, how long does it take you to run to another person? You have to tell them because you have to release your thoughts versus let it like circulate and reverberate in your body, right? That all increases your capacity.
Right. I love you bringing up capacity. That's a new way to look at it. And it's really profound because I feel like so often people, they don't resonate and pause in it and just kind of marinate in their own thoughts and feelings and emotions. And whether it is a workshop or it's a sexual intimacy, it's connecting, it's on a date and just intimately connecting and looking at that person and not wondering how soon should you pull your hand away or should you scoot away or should you sit closer. And I was just interviewed on where to have meals in the neighborhood that I work. And I was telling them even tips on where to sit in the restaurant. And the person who wrote the article talked about like, well, if you sit on this corner booth that I was describing and that up at the bar, then you can be able to still touch your partner's knee while you're eating your food. And the fact that he caught how important that was shows that we forget how much being so present and knowing our qualities and also doing a little of the homework ahead makes that difference. So as you talk about the capacity, it also makes me think about how being truly present on the date and not overextended really does pay off and allows you to receive this person, but also just enjoy that you found this person and let it be what it needs to be to bloom.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really like become the mistress of tension, right? So I have a friend who who was a dating coach, and she was a dominatrix. And so what a dominatrix knows really well is how to hold tension.
Oh yeah, that's true. Very true.
About tension, right? So it's all about that when you're on a date and, is he going to say, those moments when nobody says something, how much can you be in your queen and just enjoy that tension, baby? Ride that tension, right?
Exactly.
Without, I need to say something. You don't have to say anything. You could just smile.
Right. I love that. Now, Brody, how can men work on building that for women to build their confidence, but also to give them the chance to be vulnerable, to let them ride their tension? I think that is so powerful because too often people are missing the moment. And when it is in moment, ooh, it's sexy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one thing I teach my men is in my programs is really to embrace the concept of holding space, which is where
you notice his voice dropped a little bit.
Yes. I love it.
it's allowing the feminine energy to come and to come out, and that tension that can come with that without you getting trapped into it. So
it's like a fence, right?
Yeah. So like the tension will come up. So I like to view it as like a lot that I talk about is the analogy of a fence. So a fence, like a chain link fence, the wind just goes right through it and it doesn't affect the fence. So like for a man on a date, if drama's happening or if something happens or the waiter spills a drink, are you going to freak out or are you just going to be cool and take care of it? You know, if the woman criticizes you or she's having a bad day or she's complaining about something or she says something that makes you uncomfortable, are you going to kind of get uncomfortable and freak out and wanting to leave or run? Or are you going to be okay in that tension, letting it go through you and just being there? Like, especially, and it becomes even more true, women will sense this from the beginning, but especially in a relationship. So what I found is with the women's deepest fears is that they're going to be who they really are and that you're going to leave. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to be able to handle it. And so you need to show a woman from the very beginning that you're strong enough. You're a man who's strong enough to handle anything. That no matter
I like that. Thank you.
Whatever comes your way, you're not going to freak out. You're not going to get just as emotional as she is, caught into the storm, and you're not going to run away. That you could just be the king and be present with her and hold the space, let it come out, and even say more. What else? Well, how else are you feeling? What else happened? And not be running away, but letting it go through you so that she can feel safe. And once a woman feels safe with you, that's when the real juicy stuff will come out. Her real personality will really start bonding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she just wants to jump you because you're making her feel safe. I mean, that's the reality. Exactly. Guys don't realize if they just let her process, because most women are verbal processors and need to talk a little out loud, just to have a place where they also need to know that sense of where this is going. And that there is something like, it's just, you want to get cozy with a person who genuinely wants to hear what you're sharing. So we're very close to needing to wrap up, but I have a question for you guys as we wrap up. Sure. What are some of the clues and guidance from male and female to male and female of how to know that this date 1 is moving to date 2 and that we're onto something? So what are some clues and tips that we could have to kind of wrap up this time with our wonderful members? I know they're so excited to get to work with everything you guys have shared.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel in general, like that it leads to a date 2. I tell my women, like, the signals that the women sending is, a smile, right? They usually find some sort of like body contact, or they just allow the man to, like just maybe touch their hand or something like that. And she laughs because she feels really relaxed, right? So, when we women feel relaxed, unless it's like a nervous laughter, but even then, I mean, if it's a nervous laughter, it could also be a signal that she's attracted to, right? So, I mean, Brody's like a master in reading women's body language, and he teaches women to do that. But, and for men, for the women to know if the man wants to go on a second date, all you can do is just really say how much you enjoyed the date, right? And see what comes back from him. Like if you can't say like, let's go on another date, right? Because that kills the polarity right there. Unless you want a feminine guy, which some women don't. Not the woman that I usually talk to. Yeah. They want somebody who supports them, who has their back, right? So if you want that kind of man, just smile and tell him how amazing the date was. And that gives him the opener, and you can fill into that, right? Like gives him the opener to say, great, that's my signal. She's interested in the second date.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'd say. So, and I believe your question was how to tell if it's going to be a second date.
Yeah, some signs to kind of tell we're on to something.
Yeah. Well, so if the other person, I mean, that goes back to like just noticing the signals, right? And when somebody's really liking you or not. So some of the signals that I typically recommend looking for is the other person leaning in? Is the other person leaning in closer to you? Are they leaning in closer? Are they asking you a lot of questions? Are they listening a lot? Are they focusing their energy on you? Because that's also what can happen. Sometimes, if it's not probably going to lead to a second date, is you can tell their energy is kind of diffused. They're looking at a lot of attention to the waiter and other things, or the screen that's up there. Their energy will be diffused. But if you can tell their energy is just really focused in on you, that's a really good sign. And most likely they're really into you and they're going to be asking you for a second date. And then like what Antia said, what I recommend is really to let go of caring. Like the more you can let go of caring about a second date, the more likely you are going to get a second date.
Oh, I like that. That is like catch and release. Let it go.
I call it committing to the process, but detaching from the outcome, which I got from Wayne Dyer. But yeah, you commit to the process, showing up on the date, being the best dater that you can be, or the best person, the best version of you, the queen on that date or the king on that date, having a good time, enjoying yourself, and then letting go. And you've done the work, you're working with your coach, or you studied, you've practiced, you're showing up as your best self, you've prepared, and just letting it go. Then once you're there, let the cards fall where they may, and be totally detached from the outcome. And there's like a universal principle. Once that happens, once you're really doing that, you're committed to the process, but you're letting go of caring about the outcome, then the outcome's more likely to come to you, because now the other person is feeling safe to actually like really come in and ask you for that, because they're not sensing that you have a lot of neediness or desperation or expectation or attachment to that. And there's just something magical that happens in the universe when you embrace that.
That's a good point, actually, right? That the man doesn't feel like, oh, it's such a huge responsibility, because she thinks we're getting married if I ask her to a second date. I'm just saying.
I totally agree with you. People, kind of women, they're planning too far forward and they don't even know much about the person. So I love that you bring that up.
Man, right? That he's not responsible to get you married to you if he goes on a second date with you. That's a good to go on a second date.
Yeah, let go about caring about the second date and care more about just having a good first date.
Be present where you are. That is so powerful. Well, I am so honored and privileged that our listeners are listening to your wisdom, your teamwork, your devotion, and your authenticity in the work that you do. So what would be your parting words to wrap us up as we finish this time together?
Honestly, for women, never dim your light. Like, keep shining your light unapologetically, and you will attract the right man for you. So you don't have to change anything about yourself. You just have to become confident with who you are already.
Yeah. Love it.
Would you like us to mention our special gift now too, or will that be later?
That's your tip.
Just a tip?
Just wrap up with your last tip for the talking time, and then I'll give them the rest.
Cool. Awesome. So my final words would be for the men or for the women, or both?
Either one or both.
So I would say if you want somebody to commit to you fully, you have to first commit to yourself fully, and you have to commit to the process, which means, like you're doing now, continue to learn more, continue to work on yourself, continue to clear out the old blocks, the old limiting beliefs, and with both feet in, like where I was when I said, yes, I'm going to do this, I'm going to master this no matter what it takes. This is important enough to me to have for the rest of my life. Put both feet in, dive into that turquoise, beautiful swimming pool, and go for it. And because once you take that massive action, and once you start getting that support and the strategies, miracles start opening up for you, because the universe sees that commitment and says, okay, I'm going to reward that commitment with equal commitment. And that's when you'll attract partners that are just the right partner for you, who wants to commit just as much as you do and just as much as you have to yourself, and that you've proven with your action.
Exactly. Beautiful. You two just wrapped it all up just how I wanted. And what I love about having these opportunities is that every quarter we're going to get to learn more from you guys. So we'll have more next quarter. But until then, what is really exciting is that all of the listeners are going to be able to have access to a special gift, and they'll be able to find it on the secret page that I'll be sending out later. But what we want to know is that what you do and what you've committed to is working. So thank you so much. I appreciate you both. And I look forward to the feedback from our listeners to be able to learn more what they want each quarter. So thank you guys so much for all that you do to support love. And I look forward to next time.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Sounds great.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye,
absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Talk soon.